There we go. Hello, welcome. How's everyone doing this morning? Yeah, welcome to our third Sunday short stream. Hopefully this Sunday is much shorter than last Sunday, but we'll see. So I wanted to say thank everybody for joining me this morning. This is something that we're trying to do with the user group, just to produce a little bit more content for people. They're a little bit more shorter, less formal coding streams. So you're gonna see a lot more mistakes, a lot more mishaps, a lot more struggling, a little less refined, but that's okay. We're just putting stuff out there to see what works, and then it also keeps me honest. It keeps me coming back and doing stuff. So I hope everybody's having a good morning. Today, what we're going to be focusing on is a bit of a continuation of the last stream where we built out a weather conditions Azure function. So if you're interested in that, please go check out our YouTube channel. I guess introductions are in order. My name is Brian McCoy. I run our assistant running the Baton Rouge user group, this Twitch channel. We have a YouTube channel. Be sure to check the links below. I'm helped out by a number of people: Jeremy Knight, Andy Andrews, Jeremy Cronin. They do a lot of stuff in the back that help me produce this show. We have our user group meetings the second Wednesday of every month. That is our big meeting, our big to do, where we get speakers to come on. It's a group of us. We usually have 20 people or so hanging out in the chat. It's a really good time. Coming up in the next couple of months, we have some fantastic speakers. So I hope you join us. Be sure to check our Discord channels. We have meetup links. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, pretty much any of the major social media outlets. Just look for us there. Again, you should see our links below our Twitch stream. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link should be there as well. So be sure to follow us to keep up to date with what we're doing. Again, we're a .NET user group, so a lot of the technologies we're going to cover are going to be .NET or Microsoft based. So Azure Functions and Blazor are going to be what we're going to look at today. Coming up in future talks, we'll be talking about web APIs. We'll be talking about Xamarin and Maui. We'll be talking about Blazor and gRPC. So if you're interested in different ways Blazor can communicate with backend services, you're going to get functions today, and then in a couple of weeks we'll actually have gRPC. So always trying to keep the content fresh and relevant. If you have any ideas, please reach out to us. If you would like to speak, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. So without much further ado, I will actually we'll kind of get into what we're going to do today. We're going to keep it light and easy. So let me transition over to where you can see my screen. All right, let's see. I can see chat. I can see my screen. I can see everything that's going on. I hope people are having a wonderful morning. I am in the middle of a thunderstorm, so if the stream goes out, then that is why. But we should be fine. If nothing else, I'll have a little bit of leeway on battery backup to let y'all know that things are going awry. So you should be able to see my screen. What you're actually seeing is the Azure function that we worked on last stream. So if you weren't with us, that's cool. If you were with us, even better. So basically what this Azure function does is it returns a list of weather conditions. And these weather conditions are Star Wars in nature. If we go ahead and run it. Go ahead and run it. You can see here I was playing around with some stuff earlier. But this is what it looks like. Let's see if I can zoom in. So we can see our function is executed in the background. You can see that here's the two routes that we have available. We're going to call the weather conditions route. We hit enter. it was executed, succeeded, and you can see here it's a list. It's nasty, but we're gonna make it better. We're gonna actually render this list inside a Blazor app, but you can see temperature, relative humidity, visibility, the type. You can see the time. These are all randomly generated by a provider that we wrote. Well, the times are, but the rest of them aren't. Let's see if we can see a name. So you can see Hoth, Jakku. So, like I said, Star Wars in nature. That's cool. We have a function. It returns stuff. We can actually come in here and... the route doesn't work like that. So we can do query ID equals 1. So, and we can pull back an individual. So we can actually search by ID. So you can see Alderaan is having issues, but that's okay. Spoiler alert. So if we look around, you can see there's nothing too crazy going on here. This is kind of a recap of what we did last week. We use dependency injection. We have this weather conditions provider that we're going to inject in. All of that is done from our startup where we actually register this class. I have this kind of zoomed in a little bit because we had issues running stuff last week, or creating the function last week. So if we come back here, I'll close this guy. Not this one. That's going to be our Blazor app. So if we come back here and look, you can actually see more of the projects. You can see a little bit more as a whole. So this is going to be the Blazor app that we're going to be working in today. Where's my... It didn't pop up. Maybe I need a period. Here we go. So off to the side. We should be able to see. We see what we have here. So this project is on GitHub. This is the feature that this is the feature branch we're currently working out of. So if you wanted to check that out, you can there. The GitHub is bmccoy04. So you can find it at GitHub. bmccoy04, and it's going to be in here. It's going to be our simple Blazor router. So I could drop a link to that in the chat real quick if you're interested. But here it is right here. This is the project we'll be working out of. There's going to be a couple of different branches for different examples that I do, but we're going to be working out of this one, the functions too. So be sure if you want to follow along or pull it down and play with it, you could use that. Everything that I've done so far is up there. So like I said, you can see here, simple Blazor router is just a simple Blazor app that I wrote, that I play around with. I like to keep things neat and clean. So if we run it, it's not going to have any styling or anything to it. It's the stripped down version of the like a new Blazor app. So you can see we have a couple of things in there that I've experimented with, and I just like to keep it clean. So this is a tic-tac-toe game that I made using TDD. You can find the examples, doing some binding, doing some context stuff. Just if you ever want to experiment, this is what I try to make it nice and easy. Take the fluff out. So today we're actually going to be creating a page similar to this one, but using our Azure function instead of using what they want. And then we're going to kind of expand on it a little bit. We're not just going to call and render stuff. We actually want to handle different types of error messages and different types of events, or different types of errors that could be returned. But in order to return errors, we're going to have to come into our function and actually handle some stuff. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually, let's start with our Blazor app and call our function. So we could go ahead and kick this off. Let's see if it'll let me kick it off from here. Build. It's running our Azure function for us. Let's see if it works. There's our function start. Cool. So we should be good. Should be running. We can hit it again to make sure. Cool. Comes back. All right. So now we're going to want to go into our actual Blazor app and kind of get this thing going. So we're going to go and create a new page, and it will be, we'll just call it weather conditions.razor. I'm going to go add. I'm going to come in here. We're going to steal some of their stuff just to make our life easier. So let's take this. Cool. We'll change this to weather conditions. What else do we want? What else do we want? We'll just steal the header for now. Oop. All right, we'll just do this. Weather conditions. So that's cool. We could put a code block in. We're actually going to initialize. Let's comment this stuff out for now. We're going to make a different object, but that's fine. We'll name this weather conditions, and then we're going to change the way that looks. I'll do that. You care? All right, we'll just take it out. Oh, all right, and we'll just make this weather condition. And we'll change this, the naming of this, to be more consistent to conditions. All right, cool. We should be able to build our app and run it, but we're not going to necessarily be able to hit the page until we fix the routing. So let's see if I remember where that is. We should be in here. So add a Nav Link to our app. So this is the navigation. So what we just did, just to kind of recap a little bit, we just created a new Blazor page called Weather Conditions. Up here is the page directive. We're actually going to say, hey, whenever somebody comes in with this route, we're going to want to come to this page. So it's going to look explicitly for this route. We're going to use dependency injection. We're going to use the built-in HTTP client to actually make our call to our Azure function. So you can see here, this is something nifty that it comes in. It's actually looking at the sample data.weather.json originally. So if we look over here, we should be able to find it somewhere. But I don't know where they keep it or where it's actually at. Maybe it's inside here. There it is, sample data. So these are just the static files that your local Kestrel server knows how to serve up. And it's just looking for that route. So you can see things like index, favicons. There should be CSS. I think I deleted. Oh, no, it's still there. So you can see all your static resource files that get served up here. It just knows that when something comes in and it looks for this route, that it knows to go here and serve it up. So that's where that is being pulled from. But that's really neat that you can do that for a sample. But we're going to go a little bit further and actually call a function that we have running locally. Then, since we have this registered up here, we need to come into our nav menu and actually tell people how to get to it, or tell the nav that, hey, this is a thing, or this nav link is just an href tag. You can see here that it's going to go somewhere. So weather conditions is going to be where we want to go. We're not going to worry about this other stuff too much. And we want to rename it to weather, and I just noticed a misspelling, conditions. So here. So now what we've actually done is in that little menu at the top that we saw when I ran the app, it had the links. This is them. There's nothing fancy to them. So a Nav Link is a built-in component that comes with Blazor. I didn't do anything with it other than copy and paste them. You can see here that this is some stuff that's left over from originally whenever you just do .NET new project with the classes. So I guess it's probably going to do something. But here is the titles to our links just inside the Nav Link. So again, there's really nothing fancy going on here. All the routing is just done by convention with Blazor. So there's nothing else that we need to do, I don't think. I could be wrong. But if we run, we should see we getting our warnings because it picked up stuff inside of our weather conditions that we left empty, that we probably shouldn't have. So that's nice of them to let us know. If we do our localhost 5001, it runs. Here's our simple weather conditions. And we can see that I left out some formatting stuff, but if we go here, we actually see our page. The route up here matches. Let's hope that there are no errors. Doesn't seem to be. So we know that we're navigating there properly. No issues, but let's go fix that real quick. Let's see, how do I do? Oh, it's super simple, nothing fancy. Just adding some blank spaces and a pipe, and it looks like I have the context twice. Oh wait, we went on the outside of the link. And I'm gonna get rid of this. Yeah, I may have to rebuild it. We'll see. Yeah, let's go ahead and rebuild it. So yeah, it looks like we're still running. Cool. Go to our local host. There's our weather conditions. All right, we're still going. We're still good. We're still good. All right, awesome. So the next thing we want to do is actually render those conditions down here. So let's go back to our weather page, or weather conditions page. So you can see here we actually had something before. So it's conditions equals await. We'll do our http get from JSON async, and then we're going to go ahead and deserialize this to an array of weather conditions. And then we actually need to put our route of what's going to be called. So just to kind of explain what's going on here is we're going to use our HTTP client that's being injected in. It's going to make an HTTP request to some URL. You can see this one is relative to the project. We actually aren't going to be able to do that. We're going to want to call our function. So in this case, it's running locally. So we're just going to call our localhost. All right, so we'll just call it localhost 7071 API weather conditions. Once we do that, we're going to populate these conditions, which actually doesn't have anything in it right now. So let's add some properties to it so we can actually see something. Let's look here. We want name. So string name. if I could spell right. String name, public string type. Okay, cool. So that'll just set those properties for us. And let's go back to fetch data and let's just steal this stuff. And just so that way I don't have to waste a whole lot of time typing. We can just modify it. We know that this is actually going to be conditions. Thanks, autocomplete. We're going to have a table. Right now we just have name and type, so we can remove those. And again, we know that we're going to call conditions actually. Oh. And here we're going to call it condition. Delete these two. Condition dot name dot type. Cool. So, spoiler alert, this isn't going to work, but we're going to try to run it anyway. Feel free to guess why it's not going to work, but go ahead and run. It should build, it should run, but it's the HTTP request that is not going to work. So if we come here, we should just see loading and nothing ever actually get loaded. So let's look and see why. Access to fetch origin. So cores. So anybody and everybody who's ever dealt with web APIs has hit this cores issue before. So how do we fix that? We actually have to go into our, I can actually keep this running. Uh-oh, close that. We actually have to go into our function and make some changes here. So if you run into cores issues locally, there's this local settings file right here, and I believe it is host. I have a snippet over here because I already ran into this problem. What we can actually do is we're going to define the local HTTP port just because we want to keep that consistent, especially since we're calling it now. I haven't tried to define it with anything other than that, but it works. And then if you do cores, what we're going to just do, because we're Rockstar developers, is we're going to just allow anything. Oh, hold on a second. So what we just did, for people who aren't familiar, is basically said that our function running on localhost port 771 will accept requests from anybody. So before, it was actually looking for requests from a similar domain, for lack of a better term, and ignorance on my part. But for now, we're just going to say, hey, allow anybody to call this. It's going to be wide open. Not the most secure thing in the world, but it is what it is. We're just working locally. This is something we'll probably have to address again once we actually publish this function into Azure Functions or into Azure. I don't think we're going to get to that today, but it would be something that you're going to have to look at. I believe in Azure, you configure cores there. This local settings.json doesn't get shipped with your function. This is just for local development. But now with that change, come back, rerun our function. Running. We can see that we can still hit this. Cool. Let's do localhost 5001 and live demos. All right, now we can actually hit our local function and render the results. Awesome. But what came out of that was we didn't handle errors at all. So that's something that we might want to consider doing. So let's look at how we can do that inside of our call. So one thing that you can see here, that there's no status checking. It's just calling directly. So what we could do is possibly put a private string error message. And before we make our call, let's just set error message to null. And then we could try catch exception and just do error message equals dot message. So this may not be how you want to do it, but let's just see if we can get this to work. So up here, we're actually gonna have to do some checking. So if conditions equals null, we know that it's loading. But what we actually want to do is say else if. So up here, we'll do is not string dot, there's no white space, error message. So if it actually has something in it, we can display an error has happened, or we can, in this case, we can just display the error message itself. Obviously, in this scenario, it should just run, so we should be good. So we should just be able to refresh this and it'll show, because there's no error message, or there's no error. So let's go back to our function and actually remove this and run it. So it is coming up. Oh, it's up. All right. So we shouldn't have to. Let's go here. All right. So an error, failed to fetch. Cool. That's not the greatest error in the world or message in the world, but at least we know that we made a call, it didn't work, and people don't have to sit around and wait for it to be loading constantly. So let's keep that running, and I'm going to come back over here and look at this. So this is where I'm going to start to get off script because I don't really know, but I actually want to do response equals http dot get async. I guess we need to do, I think we're actually using await. We're going to call this it doesn't like the. All right, we'll just do it like that then. And then what you can do is if response dot, what is it, is success status code. You can do conditions equals response dot content dot Read from JSON async. That should work, right? So now we can actually check if the response is successful. If not, we could do else if response dot status code equals 500. We could just do, oh, it doesn't like that. Okay. HTTP status code dots. See if we can find it. So here's all the different status codes that we can actually check for whenever we're calling, so that way we can handle it in different ways, because you may want to show different exceptions for different things. So you can see here's our OK status code. I'm actually, oh, you can do something if the request timed out. I'm actually looking for internal error, or if there is one. Let's see, bad gateway, accepted, created, ambiguous, forbidden. Gateway, no content, not implement, not modified. Service too many, unavailable. Proxy, I'm trying to see if I can, which one am I? Let's see if I can see what I'm looking for. Let's see, I'll Google. So HTTP status code 500. For .NET. Status code. Oh, okay. Well, we could do that. Oh, it was an internal server. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Oh, okay. So I thought it was in here. Oh yeah. That's what I was looking for. Thanks so much. Let's see. So we can actually just fill our error message. Equals something not great happened. Now we could do this with I mean, we could do this with just with the try catch itself. But what's going to end up happening is there may be different response codes we actually want to deal with or handle separately. One of the ones that I know I've ran into in the wild would be HTTP status code dot resource. Let's see if I find this one. Or not found. So something around this. A lot of times what you'll actually see happen, well, I don't know if I'd say a lot of times, but I've definitely ran into it where if you were to call, let's say we get to the point where we want to pass in an ID and we want to pull back a specific item or a specific weather condition based off of that ID. Sometimes you'll actually get a 404 not found or resource not found. Sometimes whenever you're calling to actually get a list of items, again, you'll find that it's not found. So instead of handling exceptions this way, this is another way to handle it. So that way we can actually just say, hey, it's not there. So it's a different error message. One thing that I really like about this is that the API is telling you what's happening versus you trying to figure it out. So, hey, something bad happened, or if something just, if you get an empty list for weather conditions, it really wouldn't be the end of the world. You just know that there's nothing there. But sometimes if you're calling with a specific ID, it's a little bit, it's kind of nice to know that explicitly that, hey, we just didn't find anything, instead of saying something happened or maybe some exception got swallowed and we just returned nothing, or maybe you didn't have access to it. But these are different things that we're going to be able to handle. Equals item not found. Other things that you can handle in here, well, it necessarily wouldn't apply to this one, but server-side validation. So you're going to have response messages or status messages for I should really just edit this, but not found. Let's see, is there going to be invalid requests? So, but there's going to be status codes for all kinds of different things, and you're going to want to be able to handle them. Some, I mean, not necessarily all of them, obviously, but unauthorized, instead of just failing. Well, unauthorized, you actually may want to just fail it, so people don't know that, you know, you've tried to authenticate or you've tried to access something that you're not supposed to. It really depends on what you want happening in your application. It's like, this is just giving us more options. I'm not actually saying like, hey, you have to do this by any means, but it's things that I like to do just so that way I know exactly what's going on, or exactly, and I can handle it accordingly. So anyway, I guess in this case it would be items not found. So if we were to do something like this, for whatever reason, it's a little bit different error, but we know that whenever we make this call, nothing's going to be there, and we kind of handled it gracefully. I don't know if you'd ever actually do that, but we can actually continue to run this again. So if we run it, at this point, I'm just playing around with how to handle these things. I would not implement it necessarily this way inside my application. I would probably build a component around this that would just accept the response or request in, and then that way we can handle things like status codes in a cross-cutting manner, instead of implementing this code in every page that we had. And that may be something that I do in a later stream, because I think that'd be something that'd be fun to do. Let's see, but it's still going to error because we need to go in and fix our cores issue again. So if I just come in here, fix the cores issue, then we can run it. Here we go. Refresh the page, and now we have it working. So just for fun, since obviously I was very verbose in handling status codes, I want to be able to actually return status codes for my weather conditions. So this is one of the things that I meant to look into for my functions, and this is one of the things that I was experimenting, playing with, or that I want to get to last stream, but I didn't get a chance to do it, is actually constructing consistent responses based off of what happens inside of my function. So with APIs, I use filters. With web APIs, I use the filters that are built in the .NET Core to handle things like global exceptions. So that way I could just bubble stuff up, catch it, handle the exception the way I would like, and return good response codes and good response messages. So that way the consumers of my APIs will actually know what's going on. So in this case, what we could actually do is we're going to take this out. So in case y'all didn't see it before, basically I should probably take this, but this is our route. It checks to see if there's an ID that comes in on the request, or in the URL. If it's there, it actually tries to use our weather conditions provider. Oh wait, if it's there, it tries to use our weather conditions provider to actually pull in or actually get that specific condition based off of the ID. So in this case, it's possible that we try to request one that isn't there, or even in this case, we can see if it's valid. So if you pass in something that's not an integer at this point, you're gonna blow up the API, which is not great. So we would need to add some validation for the incoming requests, or we just don't return anything. It's up to you. It's up to whoever builds the API. I personally would actually add the validation and return a 400 response to whoever made the call to say that, hey, you have an invalid request, and actually tell them what's invalid. That may be something we expand on eventually in this app, but I don't know if I'm going to have time to do it today. What I do want to do is, in this case, try actually change this up a little bit. So just so we can see, we're going to make it a little bit more messy, but we can always, we're just playing around, so we can always come back and fix it. So we'll leave this the way it is, but we're going to come in and change this guy, and you should be fine, right? All right, cool. Because what I actually want to do is not return this OK response. I actually want to see what it looks like to return no results found and see how our UI handles it. So one thing we'll have to do is actually, for we'll just do response equals new object result, and it wants an object. So can we just pass it a string? And we'll put a message in there of no conditions found. Well, obviously we have some. We're just going to explicitly return this just to see how the UI works. So in doing that, I want to do something similar. Dot status code equals, and here it's actually an integer, dot 404, and then return that response. So this should return a response. I wonder if you could do something. Can you just do result? No. All right, we'll just leave it object result and see what happens. So we come back and run it. And let's go and call this, and we can see we get a message, no conditions found. And if we go into our developer tools, we can actually see that we get our 404 error like we were expecting. So if I come into here, we can actually see no items found. So it's actually returning the message that we had. So, I mean, obviously you could do something like this if you just check the length of the array that got sent back and that it was 0, or you can actually have your API send back 404s. For lists like this, I've been in a lot of discussions on whether or not you should, because it seems to make sense. I hate that. I need to fix that. Because it makes a little bit more sense to do it like this, if you actually don't find anything. So if we did 100, let's see what happens. It just returns null. But it may be a little bit more informative if you actually returned the response code of not found there. But that's just how you would do it. So we could actually come in and make that. But that's, so anyway, that's about all I really planned on doing for today. I just want to play around and see mostly how I could actually get these response codes constructed and returned in an Azure function, similar to how we built out the page on this end. Again, this isn't something I would necessarily just lay around inside of my application. What I may do is take this and the next stream and build something a little bit nicer around this grid. But what we have for now is a system that I can call and use for experiments. This is basically what I'm going to end up doing, is publishing this Azure function to Azure one day, I mean, hopefully, and just have it return these different error messages and responses, especially around getting not so much the list, but getting the individual weather conditions. So I think next time we may actually just build out a details page where you click on a weather condition, make the call, and pull it back from the API. We already have, or from the function, we already kind of have that done. So we may do that next time. That way, this will actually be a little bit more meaningful than it is now, because right now this doesn't really make any sense. We just want this. I just want to see how to do it. That's the only reason I did it. So I'm going to take it out and actually move it down here to where if you try to get something by ID, but then we'll also do some validation. So maybe what we could do is build out some type of factory that will take in the query string or I don't know, so maybe we can see if we can get fluid validation or something working in here to where we can actually validate that what's being passed in is correct, return proper status codes based off of that. And then if we do a search and don't actually return something, we return a 404 status code. But that's what I'll probably do next time, or some other time. I don't know. I usually try to do these every other week, but I did promise some people that they can come on and do some stuff on here with me. So I don't know which is going to happen next, but either way, I'm going to clean all of this up, basically just remove it and put it back to where it was, but then look at how to implement that logic in here, because this is where it's actually going to be more meaningful, is when we try to get an individual weather condition versus getting all of them. There's really no validation that takes place or anything like that on the get off side. But yeah, no, yeah. And again, this is just different ways to handle responses coming back from your APIs. I mean, you never want to just leave somebody hanging out on your screen because you didn't handle errors on the UI properly. But anyway, I appreciate everybody coming and hanging out. Make sure you follow the channel, and I'm going to export this and put it on YouTube. So I don't know, this code's kind of embarrassing, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then I will, yeah, I will. Oh, thanks for the follow. Chiropox? I don't know. I don't read well, so I apologize. But yeah, thanks for the follows today, guys. I also see what letters. Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, I'll try to be back in about 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. We'll continue building on this. This is not a final state by any means. Again, I do have some Blazor development experience. Azure Functions is something I'm playing around with. I write a lot of web APIs and ASP.NET Core. So what I'm trying to do is take the practices that I do around that and apply them here. And again, status codes and routes are something I'm really opinionated about. So I definitely want to try to see if I can get my routing attributes to work like I expect them to. So that may be something else that we look into. So, but all right then, until next time, I appreciate everybody coming and hanging out. I'll be back in about 2 weeks. Don't forget, not this Wednesday, but next, we'll have Carl Franklin coming on, and he'll be talking about Blazor and gRPC. So if you want another way to access backend APIs that isn't necessarily just standard RESTful APIs. gRPC is going to be another option that Microsoft's going to give you. So if you're interested in learning more about that, it'll be not this Wednesday, but next at 5:30 Central. And I hope to see you all there. Thanks for hanging out.